And the Republican campaign for president, it has come to this. Donald Trump being accused of being part of the establishment, and Ted Cruz accused of being Ted Cruz.
You know, his new line of attack is that I'd become establishment. Oh, give me a break. Because Bob Dole, who's a terrific guy, said Trump will do better than Cruz, which is, you know, believe me, I will do better than Cruz. Cruz is going down. He's going down. No, he's having a hard time. He looks like a nervous wreck. He's going down. He had his moment. He had his moment. He had his moment and he blew it. Here's a United States senator, Republican, doesn't have support of one other Republican senator. There's something wrong there. And I can tell you, they like me, those guys, and there's nothing wrong with that, folks. I told you, he's trying to paint me as part of the establishment. And somebody said, establishment? Well, how come Sarah Palin just backed him? Establishment. And you know what? There's a point at which, let's get to be a little establishment. We got to get things done, folks, okay? Believe me, don't worry. We're going to make such great deals. But at a certain point, you can't be so strident. You can't not get along. We got to get along with people.
And here's Ted Cruz's updated stump speech in New Hampshire today, where he has magically transformed Donald Trump into now the leader of the Republican establishment.
Donald, just a couple of days ago, drew the difference between me and him. And he said, look, Ted won't go along to get along. He won't cut a deal. So if as a voter you think what we need is more Republicans in Washington to cut a deal with Harry Reid and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, then I guess Donald Trump's your guy. That's what the Washington establishment is saying. If you want someone to continue the cronyism, to continue the corporate welfare, to continue the corruption of Washington, from Washington picking winners and losers, then we're seeing the Washington establishment run behind Donald Trump.
The New York Times reports that Washington Republicans are ready to get behind Donald Trump if it means stopping Ted Cruz. Quote, report says, in the minds of these Republicans, it would be better to effectively rent the party to Mr. Trump for 4 months this fall through the general election than risk turning it over to Mr. Cruz for at least 4 years as either the president or next in line leader for the 2020 nomination. But the National Review, which used to be the leading publication of the Republican establishment, is uniting tonight against Donald Trump. Tomorrow's issue, as Rachel mentioned, will carry this cover with 22 prominent conservatives from Glenn Beck to Bill Kristol coming out against Donald Trump. In a new CNN poll of Iowa Republicans out today, Donald Trump is now at 37, and Ted Cruz is 11 points down at 26. Marco Rubio is at 14, Ben Carson at 6, and Jeb Bush way down at 3. Joining us now, Charlie Cook, NBC News political analyst and editor and publisher of the Cook Political Report. Former Republican Congressman Tom Davis from Virginia. Also with us, Joy Reid, MSNBC national correspondent, and Jonathan Alter, MSNBC political analyst and a columnist for the Daily Beast. Charlie Cook, you've seen a lot. You've thought you've seen everything, maybe, but then comes this week, which I think we can say every week of this campaign. This is an unprecedented kind of revolution we're seeing in the Republican Party. National Review out to stop Trump. We're hearing reports of so-called establishment Republicans out to stop Ted Cruz. Where are we, Charlie?
Well, Tom Davis and I were just talking before the show that, you know, you could study politics for 30, 40 years, and it's not of a whole lot of value this year. That all that's out the window. I think the key phrase, the key thing that New York Times piece said was they would rather not, that the establishment would rather nominate Donald Trump and to see him lose in November than potentially nominate Ted Cruz and Cruz wins for 4 years. But it's a matter of, I mean, they don't think that the establishment, I think, generally speaking, they don't think that Trump has the faintest idea how to govern, but they also don't believe he'd win a general election. Versus Cruz, where there is a personal animosity. I mean, Bob Dole, for example, and I love Bob Dole, but Cruz led the charge basically against this disabilities treaty that meant a great deal to Bob Dole. So this is personal between many people in the establishment and Ted Cruz. It's not about pragmatic politics.
Tom Davis, I have last year's list of the Republican establishment right here in front of me, and your name's right here under the D's. I don't have the updated version where Donald Trump is now your leader. Can you guide us through what's happening here and where you expect this to be after Iowa? You got the National Review here, where their only mission, it seems, as of now, only thing they care about is stop Trump. And then we see everything else that's going on in this campaign, the very personal back and forth now between Ted Cruz and Donald Trump. Where does this go?
Well, first of all, I don't think the National Review folks really get this. This is really an anti-establishment revolt on the part of grassroots Republicans, and the National Review is the conservative establishment. When Donald Trump went after Megyn Kelly at Fox News, the conservative establishment over there, it didn't hurt him at all. The more they isolate him, send him out there, it just spikes up his people, and I think his lead, he'll get a lead in Iowa over this. I think it really backfires on them. The voters right now don't trust anything big. They don't trust big business. They don't trust big government. And Trump has been able to just, I think, articulate the vision of the little guy, if you will, the outsider, somebody who stands up against political correctness and is writing that. And the Republican establishment doesn't know what to do, but the conservative establishment doesn't either. And I'd say one other thing. The more these guys go after this vote, I think it makes them much more marginal in a general election, where Republicans have to win Iowa. I mean, they have to win Ohio and Florida and probably Virginia. And the way they're talking right now, they're not going to be viable.
Let's get that National Review cover up in a full screen once again. I need to have it up here while we talk about this. I got to, Joy Reid, when you look at that, is it possible that Donald Trump simply purchased that as a front page ad as his answer to Ted Cruz's accusation that he's the leader of the establishment?
Well, you know, he couldn't have done better if he had. You know, I think it's interesting, and it's interesting listening to Tom Davis and the others talk about it, because there really is this sense that, as Bruce Bartlett told me, the former Republican turned independent, that for 30 or 40 years you've had the elites of the Republican Party amass a large enough coalition to pass the things that the elites wanted, namely very low taxes for themselves and deregulation for their businesses. And they assembled a large enough coalition by essentially feeding blue-collar white voters everything from evangelicalism and supporting them in terms of their religious faith, and promising them that they would legislate around that, promising them that they would legislate around social issues that were important to them, promising that they would beat back the liberal, creeping liberalizing of the culture, by feeding them even with their deep down gut feelings that there was something really inherently wrong with Barack Obama. And they've been able to hold that together with the help of the entertainment complex that's a part of the conservative movement, with the help of movement conservatives. Immigration is where the bargain just broke down, and that base, the base of the party, is no longer willing to go along with any part of the elite, not the movement conservatives, not the moneyed elite part of the party. They're just not willing to go along with it. Immigration was the deal breaker, and they are gone. They cannot be brought back into the pen, not even by the mighty National Review. None of the people who are voting for Trump are going to read that. They're not going to listen to those people. They are not listening.
All right, let's listen to Lindsey Graham today, who is apparently now the leader of the Stop Trump and Stop Cruz campaign.
If you nominate Trump and Cruz, I think you get the same outcome. You know, whether it's death by being shot or poisoning, does it really matter? I don't think the outcome will be substantially different. Here's my take. Dishonest, which is Hillary Clinton in the eyes of the American people, beats crazy.
Jonathan Alter, you remember everything, so please remind me the last time a senator in a party criticized the two front runners in his party, two front runners for the presidency, as one being death by being shot and the other one being poisoning. I'm having trouble remembering the last time that happened.
Well, you know, I really do think you have to go back to 1968 when the Democratic Party was just rent asunder. And in some ways, you know, Bernie Sanders reminds me of Gene McCarthy, the kind of Pied Piper quality of his campaign against the establishment in the Democratic Party. But it's much fiercer on the Republican side, and you have a real crack up. It did not happen overnight. Remember Pat Buchanan's campaign in 1996. So we've had 20 years now of very frustrated blue-collar Republicans who do not find, as Joy indicated, that they're being represented in today's Republican Party. But I also think we shouldn't get ahead of ourselves. It looks like we're headed for 3 lanes in these Republican primaries. You've got the Cruz lane, the hardcore traditional conservative lane. You've got Trump and the populist/fascist Republican lane. And then I think you do have a country club Republican classic establishment lane, which hasn't been filled yet. So, for instance, if John Kasich finishes a strong second in the New Hampshire primary, he could get a tremendous amount of new support very, very quickly. Or could be Jeb Bush, Chris Christie, whoever in that particular lane, because there are still a lot of traditional Republicans who are not, quite as angry as the Trump supporters. And they may yet still be heard from as we move beyond Iowa and New Hampshire.
Yeah, Charlie Cook has long been insisting this is going to break into a 3-way race at some point. We're going to take a quick break here. We are waiting for Donald Trump to speak to reporters. We'll take that live when it happens. Also coming up,